Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Boss Body Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm your host, Sarah Haas. And if you have been following this podcast for a while, you know that this podcast is all about being healthy. And being healthy is not just about being physically healthy, but it's about being mentally healthy and spiritually healthy and having balance and joy in your life. And so I am really excited because I have a special guest today. Claire Stadhouder is with us, and she is a certified mindset coach. And she especially works with moms who are transitioning from stay at home to going back to work. But the reason that I thought she would be so great to have on today is because she works with women who, as she put it, are kind of in their second act. So, your kids are growing and probably back in school, and you feel like you are ready to transition back into work or whatever is gonna give you joy and give your life meaning. And, a big challenge being a mom myself is balancing all of that, juggling
Mhm.
all those activities and having a work life, home, kids, spouse, pets, extracurricular activity balance. And so Claire is going to help us out with that today. So, Claire, thank you so much. I am so excited to hear the advice that you have for us today. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you, Sarah, for having me. And hello, everybody. It's wonderful to sort of meet you and be here. And I'm very excited to help you out with some tips, indeed, on the second phase in your life, or let's say the new phase. I mean, life is all about phases, right? So,
Exactly.
but this one, yes.
Yeah. So, Claire, will you just tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to do this work?
Yes, yeah, I have to say it was a longer process. It didn't go from one day to the next. But I'll try and keep it short. Years ago, I started getting interested in coaching and counseling. So I did a course in the Netherlands at the time and loved it. But then things happened, and I moved away for a year. And then other things happened again. So, meaning I didn't actually start my, practice then. Life threw things at me, and then shortly after that, kids happened, and all that. So coming, fast forwarding to now, well, not now, but more recently, let's say, a few years ago, it just kept playing in my mind that it was really something that I really wanted to continue. So that's when I thought, okay, well, let's pick it back up again, and got some new certifications, and started it from there.
And
And
were you working before you had kids? What's your background?
yeah, so when we moved to the US, I wasn't allowed to work for a company, so we were on my husband's visa. So once the kids got a little bit older, I started working on projects, helping other people out, um, joining a foundation, working on that side. So it wasn't paid work like from, a corporate company, but I was
Mhm.
definitely working and putting my time elsewhere
Yes.
than with the family, just to sort of, yeah, keep that interest going and keep my, my gears going as well.
Yeah, keep
So, yeah.
that mental
Yeah.
stimulation. And
Yeah.
so you were very much balancing kids and
Oh, yeah.
family and work and all of, and
Yes.
plus you've moved around. I guess I should have mentioned this in the beginning. I'm sure that the listeners have noticed that you have that beautiful English accent. So you're actually from London, correct? And now
What?
living in Texas?
Well, yeah, the latter is correct, but it's a very mixed accent. So I was born in Sydney, generally raised in the Netherlands by my Dutch and English mother, but spent a lot of time in England as well. So it's very, confused. Let me put it that way.
Well, I love it. I
Oh,
love it.
thank you.
Yeah. So you have recently started your coaching business and you're focused on moms, as I said earlier, who are sort of in this second act, this transitional period. So, what do you find are the challenges? Because I know a lot of my listeners are about to go through this or have gone through this or are maybe in the thick of it.
Well, yeah, it's one of the toughest jobs being a mother as it is, but then wanting to go back to work as well. A lot of mothers struggle, firstly, as well with their energy, with the guilt, and how to manage it all and how to balance it all.
The energy's
Um,
huge. You know, that's one of the biggest things that the
it,
ladies that I work with struggle with is, just getting enough sleep and being able to get everything done. And then you're working. And then when you get home, you're exhausted and you're trying to feed everybody. And, it is just really difficult.
it really is, and I think it's one of the well, not one of the probably the toughest stage in your life. And
Oh,
there's
I
not a
agree.
magic one for you to get extra sleep or
Hmm.
whatever. So you're going to have to try and find ways where you can at least bring a little bit of that peace into your life that will keep you going a bit. It is a phase, but sometimes it's also you have to just get past it and get through it
Hmm.
as well as you can. And I remember those days. I was utterly, utterly shattered.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so what kind of advice do you give for that? Like, how do you create some of that balance? Like, of course, you're gonna be more tired than, say, someone who's retired or
Hmm.
someone who hasn't had kids.
Hmm.
So that's inevitable, but
Hmm.
what do you do to help women when they're in the thick of this?
Yeah. So one of the things I try to work with them is actually to also find what brings them a lot of joy. Because when you find something that you really connect with and brings you joy, it energizes you. And, even if you only have like 5 minutes in a day, that can actually really power you up quite, well. So for me, that's one of the key ways where you can keep yourself more energized, a bit more focused as well, and a bit more of that peace in mind. Because what also drains us incredibly is the stress, right? The mental space that we sort of is basically weighs us down often, right? So creating that space for you as well to find that peace really does help you feel more balanced, a
Mhm.
little bit more in control, and yeah, at peace as well with yourself. Yeah.
And I think that's one thing, that's hard for us as women or moms, whatever, is, we have all these things to do. We have this long
Hmm.
list and we're pushing and we're trying to get it all done.
Hmm.
And we think, okay, I don't have time to take a break right now. Like I
Hmm.
have to get this done. And,
Hmm.
we kind of feel guilty. We feel like we're doing nothing and we're not being productive. But that's
Hmm.
not really the case because what you're saying is if you take that break and you break that stress cycle and you lift your mood, then when you go back to those activities, you're actually gonna get more done.
Exactly. You're much more efficient, you're more focused. So, yeah, it's actually a very, very important step to take. And so I always say you should have that on your to do list. Time for yourself, like I said, even if it's only 5 minutes, and find out what that is. Right, for some women it's talking to a friend, for somebody else it's listening to something funny. But it really does actually, you gain time when you do that. So instead of thinking, oh, I'm being selfish or lazy,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We wanna
incredibly.
be so down on ourselves for if we're not
Exactly.
busy every second, we're being lazy.
Exactly. Well, and that's why it's important to have it on your to-do list, because you will start to see it as a task and you are busy, let's say, but you are busy re-energizing yourself and actually getting more time back. Like you said, right? Yeah, you do things more effectively afterwards.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I coach people on is is getting in the exercise, like physical activity,
Oh, yeah.
scheduling that in. And it's important because if you don't schedule it in, you're not going to get it done because we always want to
Yeah.
put ourselves at the bottom of the
Last.
list. And
Yeah,
we
exactly.
all know whatever's at the bottom
Yep.
is last priority. It's not going to get done. And
No.
exercise actually helps you feel better and energizes you.
Yes.
And so I love that you're saying, okay, you need to schedule in just relaxation or
Yeah.
joy. You
Yeah.
know, I
Exactly.
know for
And
me, it's taking breaks to go outside to get in nature. Like that just
yeah.
calms my nervous system immediately. And
Yeah.
just even if it's like you said, 5 or 10 minutes, like I'm lucky because I work from home. So throughout the day, but even if you're in an office, no matter
Yep.
where you are, you can, step outside, get a breath of fresh air. And I also like to
Exactly.
play with my kitten. So that's my
Yeah.
other calming,
Oh my
little pick me
goodness.
up distraction.
Absolutely. It lowers the your heart rate as well. And that's one of the other things I also say. If you are in the office indeed and you don't have time to go out, I mean, I do try to say after every task or meeting or whatever, take that mental break, step away if you can go outside. But otherwise, just a breathing exercise. And a breathing exercise can be just as simple as three breaths. Let's say I do teach them a particular technique, but it really helps you bring down those stress levels and bring you back to the ground indeed. Absolutely. But what you were saying about the exercise as well, and I fall off the wagon myself
As we
sometimes,
all
right? I have
do.
this
Mhm.
exactly, and I don't beat myself up over it. I'm like, okay, not today, but then tomorrow, right? Um, but really, like you say, it energizes you, but it also really gives you a sense of power, right? When you have done that workout, you feel more in control, you feel more powerful, that pride. And yeah, it's a physical translation, I find, of a mental thing that you're trying to achieve, right? And it
Yeah.
just,
I think
hmm,
a lot of times we feel like we are just a victim of our schedules
hmm,
and this rapidly flowing the day is just rushing by and we
hmm,
are just trying to swim and keep our heads above water.
hmm,
And you're saying by, taking these little breaks, we sort of get our power back.
hmm.
We have that sense of control of, okay, my schedule is not controlling me. I am controlling my schedule.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And there is, like you say, an element there that you do have a say in, right? And you can also say no. You can also change your mind. If there are things on the schedule, you can actually say, I'm sorry, it's not going to work out today, right? So, yeah, it is very important to sort of keep in mind also what your top needs are that day, even with the kids extracurricular, right? Then as well, it gets really, really busy. Either maybe there's a way where when they're there, you can take that break
Mhm.
or drop them off or, maybe not go
Yes.
sometimes,
Yeah,
right?
we have that mom guilt, like, "Oh, I have to be at every practice, I have to be at every game, every performance." And
Right.
in reality, we can go to most of them and they'll be fine. We can get
Exactly.
a grandparent or your spouse or your partner or, whoever can go and
Exactly.
be there for them. Like
Yeah.
you're not a bad mom if you take a
No,
little break for yourself.
no,
And I love what
exactly.
you said about, okay, maybe you can do something while they're doing that. So that's one
Yes.
of the ways that with my kids being in soccer and track and, all the band is you don't really have to sit there through the whole practice. Like when they're
No.
little, you might not want to just drop them off. Like you still want to be around,
Hmm.
but you can easily walk around and around the field or the track or whatever while
Yeah.
they're in practice. And I still do that to this day.
All
And
right.
yeah, I mean, it's an hour, hour and a half where you would just sit there.
Exactly right. You win an hour. I remember one of when my kids were doing soccer, and yeah, there was this one mom who would do her workout. She would just jog around the field,
Mhm.
and I thought, wow, that's great. That's one, box ticked again. And what I like to do indeed with my younger one is I'll drop him off, and either I'll say, look, I'll stay for like 20 minutes, and then I'll go away, and then I'll come back again, or I just pick a small corner and then tell him as well, I'm going to be working, so I will be watching you sometimes, but
Mhm.
I might also need to do a little bit of work. So again, it takes just the pressure and the stress off a little bit.
Yeah.
You're still doing it, but in a different way.
Mhm. Yeah, and another thing that you said earlier was sometimes you just have to say no. And not necessarily with your kids or with going to all their events, but we we struggle to tell people no when they ask us for something or even though our schedule is already packed,
Uh-huh.
somebody else, maybe it's a charity thing or family,
Mm.
extended family, whatever. And I think that's huge because when we say yes to something, we're always saying no to something else. So taking that into consideration every time you say yes to something, are you taking this time away that you need for yourself?
Exactly. And again, if you put that on your, let's say, to-do list, right, and see it as more like an important part of your day, then it's also easier to say indeed no, because you need to have that time to yourself, right?
Mhm.
And again, if you say yes to everything or something that you really don't actually want to say yes to, you're also not giving that person the best of yourself, right? So if you want to be more helpful or impactful to them as well, just think of it in that way as well. Can I do it maybe another day? Does it have to be this day? Because, you'll get more and better of me if I do
Mhm.
it another day.
Yeah, and you don't wanna be there and be resenting it and,
It's the
be in a
wrong
bad
energy.
mood and yeah, exactly, because
Yeah.
you feel like just your presence is giving them what they need,
Yeah.
but really they need quality, not
Yeah,
quantity.
exactly. And you're even when they ask you, you're allowed to sort of take a moment, take like, let's say, a mental breath and think to yourself, but is this something that's really going to be good or helpful to me as well? And if
Mhm.
not, then you are absolutely allowed to say, I'm sorry. And particularly if they're parents themselves, they'll understand. Everybody
Right.
gets it, right? We're all in the same boat,
Oh, yeah.
we're all there,
Yeah,
right?
and we're afraid to say no. We're afraid people are gonna be mad at us or not like us, or we're
Yeah.
afraid that we won't be valuable enough or, whatever enoughness we think we need to be. And that's
Yeah.
a really big mindset change.
It really is. And I think also what we also tend to do a lot is compare ourselves, right? I still do that sometimes as well, right? When you go like, well, she manages it all. How
Yeah.
come she can do it and
Mhm.
I can't? I should be doing more. No, everybody's different. Their lives are different. You don't know what support they have, what's going on in their life. Just
And
look
you
at
don't know
what
if they're
is,
healthy. You don't know if
yeah,
they're actually under the surface happy. Maybe they are
exactly.
pushing and pushing and putting on a happy face and they're actually not keeping
Exactly.
themselves healthy. So yeah, you
Yeah.
never know what's going on under the surface.
No,
And like you
exactly.
said, what kind of support do they have? What if they have a very supportive spouse and you don't? Like I
Yeah.
know for me, I'm a single mom.
Yeah.
So somebody that has a two-parent family that's a lot more support.
Yeah.
And, so I'm just not going to be able to do
No.
everything.
No, exactly. And you really have to, and I love that's what you're doing as well, to really stay more in tune with yourself and your own body, because that gives you a lot of clues as well when, things are not going very well. Really listen to your body and really try to respect
Mhm.
your limits as well, indeed. And no matter what somebody else is doing, yeah, you don't know.
Yeah. I always say your body is your check engine light. And so you have to stay mindful of what messages your body is sending you.
Yeah.
So if we're tired, we kind of criticize ourselves like, what is wrong with me? Why am I tired? I shouldn't be. I need to keep going. When
Mhm.
really that's your body saying, okay, you are doing too much, or you are
Yeah.
not getting enough sleep, or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're drinking too much caffeine, so any message that your body is sending you,
Yeah.
there's a reason behind it, and it's not healthy to ignore those signals.
No. And we're all humans as well, and like I was saying earlier on, some days, I don't know, there is no real explanation, but still respect it and try and give yourself that moment of peace. So maybe if you're at work, maybe there are certain tasks that you can get away with not doing that day, or meetings that you can move up, a week or whatever. So you do create a little bit more calm in your day indeed.
Mhm. Or maybe just a mental health day, just a personal day to
Yeah.
literally stay home and just watch Netflix or take a
Oh,
bath
gee.
and a nap.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's funny. I used to have this friend, and she was absolutely fantastic at this, but and I was not as good, but she was, rightly so. Her husband traveled a lot, so she was doing a lot of it herself. And whenever her kids went down for a nap, she would just say, "You're going to have to stay in your room, whether
Mhm.
you nap or you don't. But, I'll set a timer for you, and in an hour's time or something, you can come out. And then, but this is now mummy's time."
That's
Um,
perfect.
and it was so good, and she would just watch TV indeed and
Yes.
just have an hour to herself, and I'd always be like, "Yeah, just stare at the ceiling, lie on the couch and stare at the ceiling."
Mhm. And that's
Um,
also setting a good example
yeah.
to your
Oh,
children
yes.
for self-care. And when
Yes.
you allow yourself self-care, they realize as they grow up, it gives them permission to
Yeah,
do the same, because kids, they follow example, and no matter what you say, they're not doing what you say, they're doing what you do. And
exactly.
so if you are just this martyr and just, pushing and pushing and doing everything for everyone, they see that and they think, oh, okay, that's the way that I need to be, especially daughters and mothers.
Mhm.
The daughters look at the mother as the example of how to treat themselves.
Mhm.
And if you aren't taking care of yourself, there's a good chance that she's going to grow up and repeat that same pattern.
Mhm. Exactly. And I think also, besides the self-care, it's also important for kids to see that mommy is a person as well, is a human being, has limits,
Hmm.
and mummy is not always accessible. So whether there's a moment in the day where you can say, indeed, watch your iPad or watch TV or play with your puzzles, but I just need a little break. And I'll often say that to my kids as well. It's like, I'm just tired, I have a headache, whatever, I'm not feeling very well. I'm just gonna, could you boys help out a little bit? Or, I really need you to help me with this or that, because, it's just not really happening today. Right. And they understand and they love to help,
Yeah. And I
and
think asking for help is one of the hard things
mhm,
as women,
mm,
whether it's our kids or our spouse or our friends or our family.
mhm,
It's hard to ask for help because you feel like you're sort of admitting that you couldn't do it on your own. And you have that feeling that you should be able to do it all.
mhm. Yes. Yeah, and I've been very guilty of that myself. Sometimes still, but yeah, again, if you sort of think of it in a way, as in, let's say, more efficiency, not saying I have to do or I'm not able to do it or I'm falling short. No, it's just
Mhm.
it's more efficient if somebody else takes over a certain task, right? And that way you've got more time and energy to focus better on something else, indeed. So it's I see it now more as an efficiency, indeed, and again, on some days you have to be a little bit more flexible than others, but it's I mean, if you think of raising a kid, it takes a village.
Yeah.
It's And your kids benefit as well. Like you say, they get the right examples as well that other people can also do it and other people can also tag on and help out. And it actually brings them a lot of joy as well, right? To
Oh,
spend
yeah.
more
I remember my
time. Yeah.
kids loved having a babysitter. They
Oh,
would like
yeah.
beg for a babysitter because, it's this teenager who's fun, who's going to be all plugged in and playing games and not tired like mom.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
And
Right.
spending time with other family members, grandparents, or
Yeah.
whatever is
Yeah.
super healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we've been
It
talking
benefits the family.
about moms, but this really applies to women, whether you're a parent or not a parent.
Hmm.
So this can apply to your work life as well.
Absolutely. And again, with your work life, I think it's very important to sort of set your boundaries and see where a lot of your energy is going and assessing what is time waste and what is not, what is needed to be worked on. And
Mhm.
I think particularly for anybody indeed, setting those boundaries and again, not saying yes to everything,
Mhm.
not thinking that you have to sort of be involved in everything,
Mhm.
and considering what do you actually want to spend more of your time on of all the things, right, that you have to do. What do you actually want to focus your time on more? And set those clear boundaries indeed. Have put a do not disturb in your calendar, right? Because again, you can't be everywhere at the same time. So you
Yeah,
need to
like
have a moment.
an office hour where you're
Yeah.
catching up on admin stuff or whatever, and
Yes.
you shut the door and you say, "I'm not taking any
Exactly.
calls."
Yeah.
So that you
Exactly.
can get stuff done, which a lot of people
Exactly.
just go in super early or stay super late in order to get that because they don't wanna
Oh,
set that boundary,
yeah.
and so they're working overtime because
Yeah.
I hear that all the time, like, "Oh, I go in on Saturday mornings because I can be so productive and get a lot done because
Yeah.
nobody's there to bother me."
Yeah, yeah, and I used to be very guilty of that. I used to, work till like 7 o'clock or even later sometimes, and I wouldn't
Mhm.
mind in that sense because I would finally have the peace and quiet to get things
Right.
done, indeed, right? But yeah, you have to set those boundaries. You can't keep it up. And
Yes.
again, ultimately, they're not getting the best of you if you do
Mhm.
think that you need to keep it up. And I remember this manager. And he used to be very, very clear in his expectations in the mornings or until I think it was 10 o'clock or something. He would have a do not disturb because that's indeed when he would be answering his emails.
Mhm.
He would be doing his admin, and then his meetings would be held in the afternoons. So anything also coming from those meetings, he would have time to work on the next morning. But
Mhm.
he was very clear about, his end of day time and his schedule so everybody knows when they can reach you and when
Mhm.
not, right? So,
Yeah, and I think, you're this was a man, and I think they feel much more confident in doing so.
mhm,
And, women, we don't wanna set those boundaries, and we want to please and nurture and be there, and in the long run, we're less productive and more tired and less
yeah,
present
yeah,
for. And I suspect that if you looked at a day in the life of a female CEO or Olympic athlete or someone who has created great success in their lives, I bet they have very strong boundaries around their time and their
yeah.
energy and stick to those boundaries.
Exactly, exactly. Because you can't get more hours in a day, but you can manage how you use those hours. And that is quite a bit up to you as well, indeed.
Mhm.
So, yeah, you have to really take your picks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I love everything that we have talked about today because I feel like as women, we need the support and we need the permission. We
Yeah.
need to have it reinforced over and over and over again because this is a pattern that we're stuck in. And
Yeah.
this is why we're so tired and so stressed and so overwhelmed and struggling to balance things.
Yeah.
And just having someone else, having a coach or someone like you to just reaffirm, you deserve this. Like, you need this. This is essential. This is not optional. I think
Yeah.
that just is such a relief. And I feel like what you're doing is just such a wonderful, empowering. I commend you for making this your life's work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And, same to you. I think anybody working with women, right, and trying to help them get the best out of themselves, right,
Yeah.
to get them to that next level indeed. But like I
We
said
have
at the
to
start,
lift
I've seen
each
it
other
so
up.
much.
Yes, we have to lift
Th-
each other up.
Exactly, exactly. And as women, particularly, we are here, we understand we're here to help you, right? And
Mhm.
that is, yeah, it's the more we do it, the more powerful the impact. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, yes. We women, we could take over the world.
We could if we support each other indeed and just
Exactly.
occasionally say to each other, right? So, like, hey, you're doing a great job,
Right.
particularly on the days when you see a mum struggling. I remember once in the supermarket, this mum was doing such an amazing job at her kid who was throwing a complete and utter tantrum,
Been there.
and you could see yeah, exactly. We've all been there, right? And you could see she was trying so hard and she did a fantastic job. And it really sort of, because you could tell she was at the brink of tears, right? And I
Mhm.
walked up to her and said, look, you did an amazing job there. And, I commend you for what you did and not giving in to the child. And oh my goodness, because we've all been there, right? So
Yeah.
even if you can support women in that way,
Yeah.
just occasionally give them a
Yeah.
compliment, help
I
them out.
mean, on a broader level, if we want equal rights, if we want equal pay, if we want to be considered equal in society, these are the things we need to be doing. And in supporting each other, that's
Yeah,
exactly how we're going to get there.
I
So,
I
I,
totally agree. I think that's exactly where our strength lies actually as women, because we are
Mhm.
able to create that community and have that sort of support. We are sort of nurturers in that sense. So I totally agree. The more we do that, the more powerful the outcome will be.
100%. Well, thank
Mm.
you. I just want to thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for
And
having me.
if any of the listeners want to look you up and read up on you and see what you're all about, or possibly get in touch with you, where could they find you?
Yes, so my website is brighthousecoaching.com. You can also go to Facebook, where there's also brighthousecoaching.com, or Claire Stadhouder, brighthousecoaching.com, or send me an email at claire@brighthousecoaching.com. I'd love to
Excellent.
talk to you.
Excellent. Well, thank you again so much, Claire.
Oh,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
you being here. It
Oh,
was
I'd love
wonderful
being here
having
too.
you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in. And it was great having you. I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. And just getting that reinforcement that we all need and that encouragement is huge. So that is our show for today. And I will see you next time.